This is Legislative Review on Prairie Public. I'm Dave Thompson. Thanks for tuning in. A lot of education-related bills in the session this week, and we want to talk about them with the chairman of Senate Education, Senator Tim Flakel. He's a Republican from Fargo. Senator, thanks for taking the time.
Well, thanks for inviting me to do that. It's an exciting time in education, many things, great things going on.
And you had the big education funding bill, House Bill 1319, in the Senate this week.
Right, we passed the amendments yesterday that the Senate Education Committee proposed. They passed without anyone speaking against them or voting against them, so that's always a nice hurdle to have crossed, and certainly there are other processes throughout. It went to appropriations this morning for their review, and then it will go to conference committee after it passes the Senate.
So what are the big highlights of the 1319 bill?
Well, one of the things, there's two really major tenets to it. Not only does it provide for academic excellence with an integrated formula, providing over $8,800 the first year and $9,092 per student the second year, behind each child as a minimum. But some of the things that people are going to be excited about too, of course, are the property tax relief. It has $714 currently for property tax relief in the bill, which is obviously historic in nature, and people will be very excited about that. And a lot of questions sometimes, well, what does that mean to me? Because if you start talking mills and mill levy reductions, people just kind of eyes glaze over and eyes roll in the back of their head. But I always give a reference point that it's about $60 for every $10,000 of the value of your home, as an example. So if you have a $100,000 house, you save $600 per year. If you have a $200,000 house, that's $1,200 per year. So those are, that's a way to help understand how much it means to an individual homeowner, property owner, taxpayer.
So that's right off the top of your property taxes.
Right off the top, and we're going to do a better job as legislators in making sure that the counties list those on people's property tax statements so that they know how much has been bought down.
Now, this is the main bill for property tax relief, correct?
Well, yes, this is the main bill. There are certainly other bills that we have to integrate as we move forward with Finance and Tax Committee. I've been working with Senator Cook on our side as he works through House Bill 1198 and House Bill 1358. Both touch on education and property tax relief and funding mechanisms.
There is a difference, of course. There are several differences between the Senate version of the bill and the House version of the bill. And since we're on the subject of property taxes, it has to do with that mill levy again. The governor introduced 50 mills. That's I guess a cap for local school districts. The House raised it to 70, and you came back down to 50, which added $120 million to the bill, I understand.
Right. We believe, the Senate Education Committee, through bipartisan, unanimous support, that we like having all that property tax relief right in front of us in one piece of legislation in one area, so we can really have a laser-like focus on that. So we put an additional $120 million that was in other places into the K-12 bill, and that's one of the differences. So we expect that the locals will pay up to 50 mills of funding in the formula, and then the state would make up the rest. And that's really, in essence, how that works.
And of course, we've talked about for years, and this happened when I first started covering the legislature. Everybody talked about 70% state funding for education. Never quite got there. 2 years ago it got there, and now we're talking, what, 75, 80%?
Well, the projections are that we'll be in excess of 80%. And a logical question we get is, okay, if you're at 80%, are you going to do a lot more micromanaging? And we've really tried to stay away from that. We've recently been at about 70%, and now moving to 80%. I don't think we're going to do anything at 80% that we wouldn't have done at 70% in terms of providing academic excellence. We've shored up the bill in a number of ways compared to what we currently do. If you want me to roll through some of those, we provided like $6.6 million more for special education programs. The small schools under 185 in enrollment, we provided $7.75 million more for them through the formula. We've provided a mechanism of interest buy-down with up to $250 million for school construction loans. And we're not, those aren't just willy-nilly in terms of being able to get those. They have to go through a process and really show that they need something. But in some cases, school buildings are over 100 years old. The building next to where I live, a block and a half away, is over 100 years old, as an example. Even in a community like Fargo, which you think of as having newer buildings, they have a number of buildings that are older, but certainly, rural schools have issues. So there are a number of things within that, but we're trying to do some things that really do target outcomes with it. And as we move through the process, we'll certainly work out a few of the differences in the House with respect to the, what mill levy do we want to have in there. But I don't think there are really big differences that we've had right now in terms of what we provided with the bill. We've also asked that through the bill that schools reduce their ending fund balance. That means how much they carry over from year to year. Right now, statewide, they're at $290 million in ending fund balance. By law, after they get above 45% plus $20,000, we, on a dollar-for-dollar basis, reduce the amount that we provide for them, because we're thinking if they're storing this away, they have their own money. So we're saying, we don't want them to build up this treasure trove of dollars. So, we have one district that has over 700% of their operating costs in ending fund balance. So they don't need our money, is what they're saying. So we're reducing that 5% the first the next biennium, and 5% thereafter, to get it down to 35%. When we look at the state picking up a greater and greater share of the cost of education, we think that's an appropriate response to that. We hope that when we send money out to them, we want them to use it. We want them to use it for teacher salaries. We want them to use it for safety concerns, school remodeling if they need to, all those things that are important. We send it out there to be used.
Now, I noticed that you used, just a little bit ago, you used the phrase, we're focusing on student outcomes. That seems to be a universal, I think, feeling among legislators that we were talking to this year. It's not only K-12, but it's higher education. But in K-12, you are looking at more rigor. You were on the Education Improvement or the Education Excellence Commission that then Lieutenant Governor Jack Dalrymple chaired, and then before he became governor. So you've had a real focus on this idea about student outcomes for a while.
Right, and one of the best things that we've done in the history of North Dakota, I think, are the merit-based scholarships that have really driven students and families to take a more aggressive, more rigorous path of academic excellence. And so that requires them to take more math as an example, so they're much more ready for the workforce or to go to college. And it's really showing up in our ACT test scores and other tests. We're very fortunate to have Kirsten Baszler as our Superintendent of Public Instruction. She is tireless in her efforts to improve quality. She is quality driven, knows the value of teachers in that, and will really, I think, provide some mechanisms by where we can really ensure that the quality is there every day of the school year.
Do you have benchmarks that are in this bill?
There are no specific benchmarks in this bill. We have some, in other bills in terms of higher education, specifically you referenced, that are being discussed, that we've had in terms of reporting outcomes. But we're getting better reporting data all the time, and with we worked on it for 6 or 8 years, I think, in terms of our integrated data system between K-12 and higher education. Now we're finally in a position where that's come to fruition, so we're able to harvest more relevant data.
How do you think this is going to affect the idea that higher education is talking about all these remedial courses that students have to take when they get into college? Do you think that will help solve that issue?
Well, I think it will lessen that issue. We know that regardless of what state you're in, there's always the remedial challenge. We can't, I think we need more 360 discussion back and forth between K-12 and higher education in regard to that. I've been a proponent for providing a pre-test for families so that, as an example, when a child is in their junior year of high school, they can take a pre-college test to see if they would have to take remedial classes when they got there. That way, they can still take them in high school when they can take them for free, rather than go on to college where they have to pay for them. And I think that would make some sense.
I know there was some talk about that. Was that not added to any bill, or is that?
That was not added to to the big K-12 bill, and we haven't had that yet.
Okay. Along with K-12 education, the big funding bill, you've had some other funding bills and some other bills that have dealt with K-12. One thing I thought was interesting was this idea about the rapid enrollment fund. And that's been an issue now since we've had more people come to North Dakota. We've had a great influx of people, so now some of these school districts are seeing some rapid enrollment.
Right. Before, we used to worry more about declining enrollment and how could we manage that type of challenge. And now with many of the school districts in the state, West Fargo is a prime example of, they're growing by leaps and bounds with, 500 new students coming in and showing up in the fall. And again, by new students, I mean additional students, because there's the churn during the year in a variety of school districts, but we talk about additional students. So that goes back again to the fact that we have a bill for rapid enrollment that's before the Senate for their consideration soon, and also to provide for construction loans. Those two things could help shore that up, because when we switched over to the new funding mechanism in 2007, we had more than 40 different moving parts to that. So the one thing we said we wanted consistent was the enrollment number. So now we're looking at a situation where there's a 1-year lag essentially. So we don't count, this next fall 13, those enrolled, they are not paid based upon that number. They're based upon the previous year's average daily membership, which is a little less than that oftentimes.
And you make the point about, you had so many moving parts. This seems to be a simplification of what's going on. There were a number of local mill levies that you could levy for this, that, and the other thing that have been consolidated now and into 1 or 2 levies.
Right. We have essentially three other levies that can be worked with. The big one, though, where we bundled a whole number of mill levies, where there's asbestos abatement and HVAC and all those, we put them into one bundle and said from that potential of 12 mills, you can do those things within that level of funding.
So again, it's not to be a state top-down, this is what you shall do, follow this commandment. You're saying here, we're going to help you out, and we just want you to improve, be the best school district you can be, teach your kids well, get them prepared for college.
Right, and try to not have all these individual silos of potential mills and costs here and there and sprinkled around. That just gets too confusing.
Now, do you think that education is going to be one of the last bills that will be finally decided, or are you going to try to get that expedited to get it out of conference committee as soon as you can?
I guess, I won't control the pace of that. That will be chaired by the House, but I'm more concerned about the quality of what we produce than the pace at which we get it out. If it takes us till the last day and it's better than it was 3 days before, I'm okay with that.
I do want to touch on higher education just for a moment about the new funding formula there, which hasn't gotten a lot of attention, but they are talking about, rather than students in the seats, they're talking about students completing their degrees in terms of that funding formula. You've looked at it.
Right, yeah, I'm prime sponsor in the bill and helped kind of work through some of that with a number of other people, including school finance people. And it has a broad base of support. The governor supported it, higher education system office, the chancellor, a variety of people have came out in support of that bill. It is, if you can understand the K-12 funding, this is so much easier than that one is in essence. So rather than paying the school X amount this session and X% more the next, we're saying we're looking at more of a performance outcome-based funding mechanism so that we pay after the student completes credits, and we pay them based upon the cost to deliver those credits. Some courses are much more efficient to deliver. You can have a class with 200 students in there, as opposed to, we'll call it, like an expensive program that's very vital, like nursing, where you're limited in many respects by accreditation to like 12 people in the classroom. You have a lot of expensive equipment associated with that, so we pay them more as a result of that. We also pay more as you go up from your freshman year to your sophomore year to your junior year, because the class sizes get smaller, it's more costly to deliver. We pay much more for the medical school for those credits taken, as we appropriately should.
Okay, you brought up the medical school. I want to get into that for a second
Okay.
too. Just let me ask you about the building project. The idea of either renovating and expanding the current UND medical school or building a new one. What's the status of that particular?
I haven't heard the status, and I don't know if there's been much work on that on the House side that I've heard about. As it passed the Senate, we voted for kind of the full-blown version of it. I voted in support of both the middle version as proposed by the governor, and then the $60 million additional costs to really make it a state-of-the-art facility that would, replace all these other buildings that were, scattered around the campus, and really make it a academic facility that would be really a magnet to students to come there.
And back on the main topic, though, since we're talking about outcomes versus students in the seat, do you think there'll be a little less emphasis on enrollment numbers going forward, or
Yeah,
as
we've
a
really
measurement?
tried to lessen that, and we've tried to get better data, to be honest, because there was a lot of data that seemed to float quite a bit, that was reported differently. So last session we had a reporting requirement that was different. Our bill in Senate Bill 2200, that has bipartisan support in both chambers, is one where we look to reward the campuses based upon moving those students briskly forward in their academic career. If you just look at encouraging them to go from 12 credits to 15 credits, they can, as a student, in essence, graduate one semester earlier because of that. And because of that, they will save at least, I would guess, $8,000, whether it's direct payments or student loans or those types of things. So we're trying to do those things to incentivize, but also by the funding mechanism, we are looking to ensure that we have the proper dollars following each of those courses that student takes, so that we aren't taking courses that are vital, like a nursing program, and saying, we're going to treat it like another program. So we provide the appropriate funding for those.
I'd like to get into one subject, early childhood education, which has turned in, and I think it's been kind of interesting twists and turns for the various bills that have been out there. And I know that there was a lot of support, it wasn't a majority support, for having some grants to help school districts get started, this $4.7 million bill that Senator Pullman was on. And that seems to have been reduced to just allowing school districts to use leftover state money and local money to help start pre-K programs.
But really, yesterday, with the passage of a couple of the bills that we had that went through yesterday, we have really made tremendous advances in terms of early childhood. We challenged them. We challenged Superintendent Baszler. We challenged the 47 districts that do offer a program in that give us the data. We've wanted that. And some of the programs have been in place for a while, and some of them are relatively new, but the data shows beyond question the value that provides, that continues on, first grade to second grade to third grade. Now, those bills will allow, part of that bundled mills that we talked about to be used towards, so if they want to put $1 million towards that translates statewide to about $2.7 million. So over the course of, if you just use $1 million, that would be equal to what we're looking at in terms of funding. We also still have a live bill that would use some of the contingency dollars from the current biennium towards early childhood. So I'm still hopeful we'll still have other things that will happen, but with a big day yesterday in early childhood, that will be historic in nature, I believe. Plus, the Senate restored the Gearing Up for kindergarten program funds that the governor proposed. So that program is really shown to be wildly successful. Parents absolutely love it. It's a little different than some of the other early childhood programs, but when we get the reports back on student performance and parents' opinions of it, the numbers are amazing.
So we're seeing a lot of progress then.
We
in your
are.
mind.
We are. And if you think, we get sometimes really anxious for progress, but we think about it. Only 3 years ago, I believe it was, we started all-day kindergarten. And now some of the people that are my legislative colleagues that didn't like all-day kindergarten, now when they have children in all-day kindergarten, they couldn't think about never going back. I mean, they just can't think about moving back to a day when we didn't offer that, because they see the value on a daily basis with their child.
So it's an evolution, not revolution.
Yes,
At this point.
yes.
So, okay, we have a few minutes left, so I do want to get into this subject because you are the main sponsor of the animal cruelty bill. And just to do a quick thumbnail about what happened, there was the measure that was on the ballot. It failed, but there was a coalition that said we're going to come up with something in the legislature to get a felony charge for cruelty. It passed through the Senate chamber. It has been changed in the House. What do you think of what the House did, and where do you think this bill is going?
Well, I'm not really sure where it's going. I've had some discussions just very briefly today with my seatmate, Senator Miller, who chairs the Agriculture Committee. I just think what we'll do is we'll kind of talk through what did the Senate do, what did the House do, try to take, and say where are the best of each of the bills, and then look, did we create any loopholes anywhere? Are there any, things that might be missing yet? But it's ultimately, the committee's decision if they, wish to concur with the bill as it came out from the House. I think one of my concerns, and I have to work through this, would it, for neglect, like in the case with the horses, would it provide the proper sanctions that are necessary in that case? In talking to Senator Armstrong, who's an attorney, does a lot of defense attorney work out in Dickinson area. He said you have to really do a number of things really before you would get to a felony level. I think a felony in that case, he would have to, in essence, do it 3 times before it would rise to the level of a felony. I think we need to, really make sure that we protect both our producers and our pet owners, but also those animals.
That's a kind of a delicate balancing act.
It is very much so, and that's why I think the longer we can continue to talk about it, to look for better, solutions, the better off we are. And again, I don't think that has to be a race to get this bill done. I think it has to be something where we really want it to be one that doesn't have any loopholes in it and really accomplishes the goals that we intended. Because I did make a promise to the group that was working on it. There's a group of stakeholders: North Dakota Stockmen's Association, Farm Bureau, Veterinarians Association, shelter people, that all came together and worked on it over 2 years to produce what I thought was a really amazing piece of legislation.
Yeah, it really started 2 years ago when a bill came through, but it didn't make it out of the
Exactly.
the one chamber, and then all of a sudden, well, it's not all of a sudden, because you said you've been working for 2 years to get
They have
something
been.
done.
I'd qualify. They
have been.
did the heavy lifting, and I came in as the other sponsors, and worked through it later on. But I mean, the credit goes to that group for the work they did. They did Herculean efforts, and I'm very proud of the work in the spirit of collaboration, and that the majority of them were able to do.
Would it be fair to say that when all is said and done, when the dust is settled and the book is closed on this 2013 legislative session, there will be a felony charge, probably a Class C felony, for some kind of animal abuse?
I believe so, yes. Right now we're kind of looking at other things in terms of neglect and some of the language with abandonment and just, some of those types of things. So we continue to move closer and closer together in terms of what each chamber thinks is important to have in there, and what, again, some of these clarification points that have been brought up. I mean, the Senate made it better in many respects, and we just want to make sure that we do produce something that is solid and will stand the test of time. And we also don't want to have it watered down so much that they come with another initiated measure, because people are going to give us one chance to do this. That's all. I mean, I've gotten many letters from friends and people that are interested in this issue, and they said, we're giving you one chance to do this. If you don't get it right, this time I will vote yes.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up, because I've been wondering about the concern, because we had Measure 2, the property tax issue.
Right.
That went down, and there were apparently promises made, or the sponsors thought there were promises made that there was going to be property tax relief. That's coming.
Right.
And animal cruelty was another one. You had the Legacy Fund, I'm sorry, the Heritage Fund,
Right.
which you just passed in the Senate today.
I think in the area of property tax, I think our goal is the expectation that we're going to do something very significant, meaningful, and that really captures the support of people across the state. I think the Humane Treatment of Animals bill and the property tax relief are the two ones that we really are. The other one, when you think about it, they would not have had the signatures if you had to count only the valid signatures. And that could be debated till the cows come home. Could they have gotten them? Probably. It's not that hard to get the signatures in North Dakota. Different on a constitutional amendment versus a regular initiated measure. But we also feel that there is room for support for that.
Okay. I just wanted to ask you how you came down on the voter ID bill.
The voter ID bill I supported because no one wants fraud of any kind. And the fact that, I remember the election before last when I went to the parking lot where I voted, 7 out of the 11 cars were from out of state. Does that raise flag? raised it for me. I was on the ballot. Fortunately I won, but I've talked to my running mate had said that one time when he was on the canvassing board, they had signature with somebody's name on there on one ballot in one district, in one precinct, and the same signature by the same handwriting in another. So we know there are things, and I think when it comes to voter fraud, we kind of need to have a zero tolerance for that. There are two things that I think are as American as you can ever get. One is a naturalization ceremony, which if you've never been to one, is one of the most amazing, wonderful American things you could ever want to witness. And the other one is our ability to vote, and to vote the way we want to.
And that comes to the end of our program.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Our guest today on Legislative Review, State Senator from Fargo, Tim Flackel, who is the Chairman of Senate Education. For Prairie Public and Legislative Review, I'm Dave Thompson.